Good afternoon, everybody. I think people are just starting to join in now, just turned 12. Welcome to the event. Let everybody know this is being recorded today. My name is Bill Barkovitz, and on behalf of the PKE Alumni Executive Planning Committee, I'd like to welcome you to the start of our 2021-2022 PKE Faculty Series, Speaker Series. It's hard to believe we started this a year ago, and over the past 12 months, we've had the pleasure of hearing from several PKE faculty on a variety of topics. And we're pleased to keep this going as a way to continue our learning and stay connected with Pepperdine and also connected with each other. Just so you know, the next event is scheduled for January 26th, and that's going to be with Dr. Miriam Lacey, so please register for that. So I'd like to thank the other members of the Executive Planning Committee, Alan, Jeanette, Amy, and also special thanks to Bridget Young for helping put this together and keep it going. Want to let everybody know we do have a new feature on the call today. If you want to stay on right after the Q&A, we're going to have a networking process, so you'll have breakout rooms and you can connect with one another. So just keep that in mind as we get towards the end. And real quick, I'd like to remind everybody to join Pep Connect if you haven't done so already. We do this on every call. It's a great place to stay updated on events, information from Pepperdine and from PKE community. So please join that if you haven't done so already. And as always, we'd like to plug the importance of referrals to the PKE program. You know, the best way to improve our school and the alumni is to refer candidates that you feel are going to have a positive impact. If you know friends, family, coworkers that would benefit from and be an asset to PKE program, please refer them, and you can contact Pearl Quintana, whose information is right there on the screen. And with that, I want to turn it over to Dr. David Smith. Dr. Smith is the Professor of Economics, Associate Provost of Online Programs, and Chair of the PKE Faculty Committee, and he's going to introduce today's speaker. Over to you, Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. Welcome all of you. Thank you for coming today. And I want to thank the Executive Planning Committee as well and their work with Bridget in making this event possible. There's a lot of kind of planning that goes into it. So I want to thank Bill, Jeanette, Alan, and Amy as well for your service to the school, your collaboration, and this new tradition we've started in the PKE Faculty Speaker Series. Just want to bring you greetings from the faculty committee that oversees the PKE program, and just 60 seconds of updates. Demos will tell us a little bit about it during his talk, but just completed a successful global trip for two of our PKE cohorts that had their global trip component postponed, and also some EMBA students. Highly successful visit to Greece. We also kicked off PKE 147. I had the privilege of reviewing the backgrounds of each of the students that came into the program. It's a good group of individuals, strong group. I think if you had the chance, we had the chance to go through their profiles now, you'd be very proud to be associated with the incoming class of PKE students. And lastly, we are as a faculty group still engaged in our 5-year review, which is a way for us to evaluate all the data that's come in on our program over the past few years and look for ways that we can enhance and improve the program. Our goal is, of course, to make the value of your degree as a PKE alum more valuable over time. So this is an opportunity for us to have resources, support from the university, and also look for ways that we can enhance the program to meet the needs of 21st century business executive. So we're in the process of wrapping that up now. That's been a big focus for the committee over the past few months. With that, without further ado, I would like to introduce my good friend and many of yours as well, Dr. Vardiabasis, who has served over 25 years as an entrepreneur, executive, and consultant. He's founded several companies, serves as the chairman and CEO of IQ Now Corporation, which was acquired by a public company, and of Health Windows, which was provided services to such companies as American Express, Hilton, Yamaha, and Honeywell. As a consultant, he has worked with companies representing a wide range of industries. He has been an advisor and board member of several startup companies, and he's published extensively in journals and business magazines and conference proceedings. And as you know, he has a wealth of wisdom about what the future may hold, and I look forward to hearing what he has to say today just as much as you do. So without further ado, Dr. Demos.
Thank you, Dave. And hello, everyone. It's so nice to see all of you. And I look some of your faces, goes back, to 30 years when you are with me in the same class. That's great. Gary, how many years since you came here?
At least 30, like you said.
At least 30, yes. Briefly. Okay.
And you know what? You haven't aged at all. What's your secret?
Oh, thank you. Teaching.
I don't know. I think it's something to do with being Greek.
No. Start teaching. Keeps you young.
Well, you must have good economics and psychology. That's what I remember you taught us.
Yes, correct. Look at David. David is 83 years old. Look how he looks. Professor Smith, you see him? 85 to 86, and he looks like 55 because he's teaching as well. Well, now you start thinking, how can we start teaching? We will talk about that next time. Right now, let me share with you a couple of topics that I thought as I was flying last night from Greece that might be of interest to you because they are of interest to me. One is the relationship between US and China, which, as you know, is entering a very curious period. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll see the actions and reactions from both countries, not only on economic terms, but political and, in a way, defense-related topics. We will talk. The second one is more economic, which also relates to the first one, is the potential of a stagflation that I observed when I was in Europe now, especially because of the rising of energy costs, natural gas, and the impact it has in all the European economies. So let me start with this one first, and then I will go to the second topic, which is the US-China economic political relationship. Now, overall, starting from Greece, the economy looks good. The economy is looking quite good, especially after getting out of this financial crisis that kept them for 10 years. Had a great impact on them. The way I presented 2 days ago in the Greek parliament, they asked me to advise them on the future of the economy. I said, the financial crisis that you, Greeks, went through has an excellent impact on you today. I put a similarity between the economic crisis and the COVID crisis right now. If it happens that you are the first one to ever get the COVID, you are in bad shape. Nobody knows what it is. You go to the hospitals, they know how to treat you. There's no any type of medicine. Nowadays, after almost 2 years of COVID, they know what to do. Of course, still people are dying, but it's easier to go through this crisis. And if it happens that you have gone through COVID, now you have the antibodies inside you, and you can pass next time around, if it comes, in a more mild way. That's the way I see the financial crisis right now. So for that, I told the Greeks, that if I was you, although this is critical times, economically speaking, you have the potential, to overcome the forthcoming global financial crisis, which is going to hit not just you, but also Italy, Spain, Portugal, the rest of Europe, and the rest of the world, easier than them, much easier than them. Okay? At the same time, in Greece, because of the financial distress they had for 10 years, they learned how to increase their productivity, primarily using more technology now. And more importantly, they have changed the state of mind. They have changed the state of mind, so they're more entrepreneurial, working harder, and the economy is growing. And I believe they will do well. The rest of Europe also is increasing approximately 6%, like the rest of the world. However, the news and the impact of the raising prices in the natural gas, which is an important component in Europe, has made all of them see nightmares. I don't know how familiar you are with the natural gas in Europe, but primarily it's coming from Russia. Now, Russia, it's another player that I don't know. I can give you two alternative scenarios and you think which one might apply. Russians said, Putin said that because of the COVID and because of the less demand we had in the last couple of years, we don't have the capacity to provide all the natural gas you need today. Take a little bit more time. But by doing that, of course, the price of natural gas has increased in the last 6 months almost 10 times. Right now, natural gas in Europe is in the price of almost $200 per barrel oil prices. That, of course, creates fear of high inflation. At the meantime, all the boats coming from China and Asia cannot upload the products, similar to what's going on here in Los Angeles, in Long Beach. They're waiting for 10, 20, 30 days. So there's a bottleneck also in the way to move these products, raw materials from Asian economies into European countries. Now, that's one scenario. There's another scenario that you might consider as probable. Russia, as you might know, has some type of problems with Ukraine. Ukraine is getting some financial benefits from Russia through the natural gas, because all the natural gas that comes to Europe goes through the pipelines from Ukraine and then the rest of Eastern Europeans that lately have become closer to the United States rather to Russia. So now what Russia is planning to do, what Putin wants to do, is to start new pipelines that goes directly from Russia to Germany, but through the Baltic Sea, the Baltic countries. That will put some economic pressure to Ukraine and the other Eastern European countries. So by saying that we don't have enough supplies of natural gas and winter is coming, that you will need to have natural gas to survive, we need to break through all these regulations and allow us to start using the new pipelines that so far they're not allowed to do. So that's a political game, and I don't know which one is correct, most likely both in my mind. But I'll let you make your own decisions there. Now, if that inflation, the stagflation, is going to hit Europe, the next main question is what the Central Bank of Europe is going to do. I hope that they will not make the big mistake to tide up the money supply, trying to fight inflation. Something that, as you all know, we have seen the economic theories. If you have inflation, you try to tide up the money supply to reduce the inflation rate. However, if the inflation is a stagflation, a cost-push inflation, if it comes, from the shortage of raw materials, if you reduce the supply of money as well, that might create not just inflation, but also high unemployment, recession. That's how we end up with stagflation that will put the entire global economy in a very bad situation. Right now, I was looking at the European Central Bank and the Japan Central Bank, and of course, you know what's going on in the United States. They're wait and see. Wait and see. The only country that has risen its interest rates in Europe is, if I remember, Norway. Norway is the only country that increased its interest rates. Everybody else have kept interest rates low so they can continue stimulating their economic prosperity, growth. On the other hand, the strange thing is that Japan would like very much to have inflation because they have been in a not stagflation, but in a low inflation, a deflation model for many, many, many years. Okay, so not every player sees that's a threat, the inflation. Some of them might see this as an opportunity. Now, I believe that the Fed in the United States, along with the Central Bank of Europe, will not tie up the money supply. And by doing that, they will continue promoting economic growth. And by doing that, they can alleviate the pressure of the other major problem we're facing in the globe, which is the enormous debt. How can we do that? If we allow our economies to grow faster, the debt to income ratio will start decreasing, or at least is not going to increase. That will be a nice accomplishment. We can never eliminate our total debt. I'm sure you understand why. The number is so big, it's humongous. But at least we can play with the debt to income ratio. And if we stop increasing that number and reducing it, that will create a better environment for everyone in this planet. Okay, so that's what I expect, that's what I would like to see. But we will continue looking into these things. Now, the next thing I would like to talk a little bit more is now US and China. Why this is so critical right now? China has successfully accomplished what they were planning for 50 years. Since President Deng met with our President Nixon in late 70s, and both of them are great leaders, for me. I'm telling you that from now, irrespective of what Nixon did, with the Watergate, it's a different story. I don't take part of that, but that he had the ability to foresee the importance of the Chinese market and make the trip to China and start developing a relationship. And also President Trump from China have changed our life in the past 50 years. Because from the year 1980 that China opened up. We have had the opportunity to have an inexpensive place to produce our products. Bill knows that because he's there. Correct? Are you still there, Bill, in China?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. But it's not as cheap as it was.
Correct, because now things have changed. China is not any longer the inexpensive manufacturing country. China has moved out of the low manufacturing cost country and exporting country into knowledge economy. And that promote them to be very close of being #1 economic power of the United States. And that's why right now we see this conflict, gentle but conflict today with China. Now, if you observe our last 3 presidents, Obama did not want to challenge China. Did not want to start any issue with the Chinese. Of course, by that time, still China wasn't as big, as powerful, economically speaking. Trump, on the other hand, he wanted to take head-to-head Chinese, but he did not expect our allies to join him as he was dealing with the Chinese. He wanted to do it by ourselves. Biden is like Trump. He wants to go after Chinese, however, with the main difference that he wants to include who else? Our allies. So if you observe what's going on in the past, several months, you will see that first, the most late event was the submarine, the nuclear submarine that Australia got. I hope all of you have seen this news. And of course, question is why a small country like Australia is going to be involved in nuclear submarines? It's a good question for you to think. However, who else do we took in that coalition? It was the United States and Australia. It was the United States and the closest allies of Australia, which are the British, England. So it was this triangle to put the submarine in an area which is near Beijing, area next to China, in a way telling them that we're here. It was a kind of intimidation, maybe. They're doing certain things with Taiwan, so we put that there. At the same time, we have the other conference where the United States invited other important players of the Pacific Rim. In addition to Australia, they include Japan and India, 2 big players, which both of them are not very friendly with the Chinese. If you look at the history, there are problems between India and China. There are major problems between China and Japan. Okay? Never was problems between China and Australia. As a matter of fact, Australia, they had the opportunity to receive tremendous amounts of Chinese capital for investments there. Okay? But on the other hand, they're Westerners, so they're closer to British and to the United States. So the player that did not join us, however, it's very important, is South Korea. South Korea is our close ally in that area there. We have the biggest army outside of the United States in South Korea. I believe it's about 40,000 army there, and we provide them with a lot of high tech, but they did not join that coalition. And you understand why? economic reasons and political reasons. South Koreans' number one trading partner is not the United States. They're trading with the United States about 130 billion total worth of products and services. But they're trading with China double that number, 250. So it's a more important economic partner for the Koreans. In addition to that, China has the upper hand in the relations between South Korea and North Korea. They are controlling the North Koreans. So Southern Koreans, they have to disallow themselves to join the United States. So they're in a way a little bit worried. But on the other hand, since everything can be explained with economics, 2 days after these meetings, you know what happened? 5 of the biggest Korean companies decided to make multi-billion-dollar investments in the United States. That explains well, and also why I have told you many times that with economics you can explain everything, every single behavior. There's nothing else, nothing by coincidence. So now, United States, looking at China right now, sees a big challenger, economically speaking, that will, in the next 5, maximum 10 years, will become number one with economic numbers. And we don't like this. I don't like this. So we try to do whatever it takes to create some barriers to that, put some problems between us and them. So we will hear more in the next, I believe, several weeks, months, about the relationship between US and China as it relates to economics, trade. The two leaders are not meeting. So a lot of things for us to observe. Now, on the top of that, we started creating some type of defense ammunition there. Of course, we don't want to have a fight between US and China. We don't want that one. It's going to be catastrophic for both countries, catastrophic for the entire world. Okay, I don't think we will do that. Okay. However, you put some pressure, not just on China, but also on all the countries around China, that they have to choose with whom am I going to work together. We have the Korean, Japan, Taiwan, Australia, Southeast Asia, and India. That's the countries that everybody would like to take them with. Not only as strategic alliances, but also as markets to sell your products. So a lot of things will take place in the next weeks, several months. Now, what China is going to do? China is also a very, very smart country. They see what we try to do, and they try to counter-attack us with what? What do they have over us? The first thing that comes to my mind is they're holding a lot of our debt. They're our number one financier right now. They're purchasing all our government bonds. So one thing they might do is to say, okay, if that's how you're going to fight me, dear United States, I will stop purchasing your securities. You don't force me, I can do that one. If that happens, What that means for the United States? It's going to be a shortage of capital because the capital we're getting from China, we need to find somewhere else. And as you know, as we have talked with most of you, there are two ways to find this capital. Either you're going to borrow from somebody else, but who is the country that has the financial capability to lend you this money? No one today, because everybody's in debt. So that possibility is very, very small. So you go to the next option that the United States has available, which is monetization. Monetize. Can that happen? We have to. You saw what's going on right now with increasing the limit of debt, which is ridiculous in my mind. This thing, we should never have these discussions. This is for PR, for all the political parties. For me, this debt ceiling should be abandoned. Go away. Don't talk about debt right now because no one is controlling the debt. Yeah. They are making stories that say we're trying. By the end of the day, they will vote for that. Now they're negotiating among themselves. What state is going to take what? So remove the debt ceiling. We're far away from resolving the total debt problem. And allow the president, whenever it's the president, to decide, yes, I'm going to increase the number by $1, $5, $10 trillion. The advantage we have as a United States, as you all know, is that we can monetize our debt. We can print as many dollars we want to do that. Of course, that creates another problem, which is the hyperinflation. But, oh well, at least we can be alive with higher inflation. Okay? We're not going to be bankrupt like other countries they can be. Greece, for example, if they do not go through these austerity measures to fix their economy and therefore being able to avoid an additional crisis, they had to restrain their expenses. They have to work harder and resolve their problems. If it was United States, they would have financed their debt. They would have print money to finance and pay their bills. They did not do it. Only United States can do that one. So that's something we can see it here. So with that in mind, you say, if we force China to a confrontation after the trade restrictions between both countries, which is hurting both countries, the next thing will be, let's restrain capital movements. We're not going to buy additional government US security bonds as China. And that will create some financial pressure for us. Of course, we can threaten them by telling them that the instruments you are holding right now, we will pay them with fiat money. We will print dollars we owe you and give them to you tomorrow. And if we do that, you know what happens. They're going to get high inflation, and therefore the money they're getting back from us is worthless. Because right now, although we're the big debtor in a piece of paper, we are in trouble. In reality, they're in bigger trouble than us. Because they're the ones that gave that money, and now we have to pay them with inflated dollars. Okay, so that gives us the upper hand to be stronger in negotiations and force them to do whatever we want them to do. However, It is going to be a time that both countries continues to fight. They don't want to back off. Then we have a trade war between China and the United States. What that means high unemployment in both countries, high inflation in both countries. In that respect, however, China has the upper hand over us. I'll tell you why. Because China, up to date, spends only 40% of their income for consumption versus United States, where we spend 65% of our income for consumption. So it's 25% difference between Chinese and Americans. What I'm trying to say is that if China faces an economic crisis because we don't buy their products, and that means who's going to buy their products? They're going to have huge unemployment. They will start producing for whom? For themselves, Chinese. And they have the ability to increase their consumption by 1/3. What about United States? We are our max. We cannot go more than 65%. Okay, make it 66%, but nothing significant because already we have achieved. So in that respect, they will have the upper hand. And I'm sure that they know that. Okay, because if I was them, that's what I will tell them right now. Don't worry, they're pushing us there, we will push them here. We have an antidote to the poison they're going to give us for some time. So that's the potential scenarios. My wish always has been, if it was a way, and it's a big if with capital letters, to have the two leaderships in the United States and China to work more close together. Then we will have global economic growth. And we will take with us the rest of the world. We will be able not to solve the debt problem we have and the potential of the upcoming global financial crisis, which is going to be a catastrophe, but we can reduce the debt to income ratio and will continue grow our economies. I was Greece, calling about their crisis. So, and grow the global economy, reduce the debt to income ratio, and hoping that this debt will never, show up during our lifetimes. Otherwise, short-term solutions, short-term problems, and situation can become even worse. And with that, I'll let you ask any questions you may have. Michael.
I'll get us started. During this time of high inflation and probably getting higher, you'd normally expect to see people investing in precious metals and those prices going up, and that doesn't seem to be happening. But I do see people moving to cryptocurrency assets like Bitcoin and seem to be attracted to its scarcity. Do you have any thoughts on that and what might happen if the SEC approves a Bitcoin ETF?
Two comments on that. Number one, I'm not very an expert in crypto coins, so I'm not the best for that. But from my point of view, I don't believe governments will ever allow these cryptocurrencies to take over, because they will lose the most important power they have, controlling the financial aspects of the economy. Okay.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Why do you think it's hard for China, US to work together more? And the reason I ask you that is that I work as a director of a international investment banking firm, and we've done deals all over the world for corporate finance, mergers, and advisory work. And if we know the US and China are so important to the global economy, what's missing there in the relationship?
Let me tell you, first of all, I know China extremely well. I went to China first time in 1982, when China was just kind of village, like Tijuana in Mexico. That's when I entered China. And at that time, they have no economic growth, but potential. Since then, I'm going back to China 3-4 times per year for the last almost 37 years. So I have observed them how they have allowed the economy to grow. They had 3 special things that allowed them to achieve the highest ever economic growth in this planet. Just as a quick break, it took the United States 50 years to double its GDP. It took Japan and England 55 years to grow their GDPs. You know how long it took China to do that? 10 years. From 1980 to 1990. And then they doubled again from 1990 to 2000. And then they doubled again from 2000 to 2010. So in 30 years, China was able to increase their GDP eight times. In 30 years, 8 times, when it took us and everybody else over 50 years to double it once, to increase once. Why they do that one? I give you my theory for that because I spent a lot of time thinking, why them? Number one, they have high work ethic. People are either they tell them to work, they force them to work, or they're working by themselves. In either case, they're working very hard. Number two, I have seen a lot of entrepreneurs, like here as well, but a lot of entrepreneurs in China, how to make more money. Number three is they have long-term horizons. They don't care about a day, an hour, a week, a month, a year. We're here for forever. So that's, and number four, and more important, is they have a central government that develops the strategic plans, and even more importantly, they're sure that they're implemented. Everybody develops business plans, but not everybody implements these business plans. So Chinese have implemented them for many, many years. So that's why they go so high growth rates for so many years. Now, Chinese, again, my own personal experience, okay, they love Americans. So Chinese, they say, what from the United States? I love the United States. I love to be in California. I love to go to Beverly Hills. I like to visit the United States because Chinese, they respect if something is strong, big. They have this, it's culture, their culture. And they never had problems with the United States because we never invade them versus the Japanese. Or they don't have problems like with the Indians. Or they don't like us, they don't trust us like the Soviet Union. So in the best position to be loved by them, and they show that, okay? Now, Chinese, took advantage of the know-how of the American companies, because they knew that we'll be here for many, many years. So let's invite the American companies, not just to sell their products to our large markets, but we want them to produce them where? In China.
In China. Mhm.
And by doing that, we have two things to gain. Number one, employment. And number two, more importantly, know-how. We will learn how to produce the same products.
Mm.
I had my class in 1980s in Long Beach, and I have all the senior executives from McDonnell Douglas who were my class.
Mm.
Finished the class at Saturday, 5 o'clock, directly to the airport to go to Shanghai, because they started the first deal with the Chinese,
Mm.
selling planes. But Chinese told them, we want your planes, or at least parts of your planes, to be built where? In Shanghai. Now, the American company wanted to make a quick profit because they saw one sale right now, plus the tremendous opportunity of the huge Chinese market. So they said, we will do that, even at the expense of teaching you how to build a plane. Chinese, on the other hand, they said, we don't care how much time it will take me to learn, but eventually I will be able to learn and build a plane. They did the same thing with GM. They learned how to make cars. Okay, that's why I say it's the horizon. So we help them to learn and become, in a way, competitors of ours right now.
Mm.
Now
Okay.
they have the know-how, they have a big market in China, they have the financial capability to buy products because they different than the United States consumers, they're saving their money. Okay?
Mm.
And now they start expanding all over the world in areas where they can reach raw materials. If you go to Africa right now, you'll believe that you are in downtown Beijing. There, so many Chinese. Latin America, they're also there. We try to impose some restrictions to them lately in Europe.
Mm.
Big Chinese investments are very difficult to be made in Europe right now, the large amounts of money.
Emos,
Yes.
you're talking a lot about China, and I think China is the subject of the hour.
Hold on. Let me see, who is this?
Gary,
Good.
I was just going to say on China, I mean, everything I'm reading, they're talking about taking over Taiwan. I mean, the COVID virus, let's face it, it originated in China. And, you know, 10 years, 15 years before I was in your class, Chinese were walking around with a little red book. And look how far they've come. You said it yourself. In 10 years, they've gone so fast and so far since Nixon went and visited them. And there's so much polarization in our country right now with the Democrats and Republicans and everything else. Are we heading to World War III with China?
Tell you the truth, I strongly believe that it's not only my wish, but also my belief that we will not have a head-to-head confrontation with China.
Good.
Because, I'll tell you why. Because 20, 30 years ago, it was high potential to have that, something like that. Today, however, if you look how many investments Chinese have made in the United States, at the same time, how much of our capital has been invested in China. Capitalists that control both governments in China and the United States will not allow the politicians to go head to head against each other. And by doing that, they will try to protect their own wealth.
You know, that's funny you're saying that, because 34 years ago in our class, you said the exact same thing, that they would never attack over here because they own too much of us.
Correct.
I remember that.
Correct. You see, that's a theory which is different than what Karl Marx have said. When Karl Marx wrote his famous book about capitalism, he said that in your attempt as a capitalist to increase your profitability, you have to start wars, because war is good for certain industries, creates opportunities, creates profits. At that time, however, all the British capitalists had their investments in England, all the French capitalists in France, all the Japanese investors in Japan, all the Americans in the United States. So it was easy to go and fight because you're going to destroy somebody else's capital base. Today, however, capitalists have no country. Today, most of the money is somewhere you don't know. They have invested their money in several locations, several countries. So with that in mind, I came with this theory. But I don't believe that you try to break down your own house.
May I ask you another question, please?
Yes.
How does the UAE tie into China?
Let me find you. Where are you?
Fernando Serrano.
Okay, Fernando. Yes. Tell me again.
How does the UAE tie into China?
I mean,
United Arabs Emirates.
uh,
The reason I'm asking you that is because there's certain countries that are providers of capital, and there's certain countries that are users of capital.
yes.
And I want to see, are we missing something with the UAE and China within the US-China relationship?
I can tell you my own personal views because I'm working with one of these funds from the EU right now. And we're looking to get some Chinese capital as well with them to be invested in Europe and other parts of the world. So they don't have any issues for doing that. The other personal experience I have is that China always, they like these countries by the Gulf, primarily because of the oil that they're in desperate needs. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Emos, this is John Shea. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about what we're hearing in the news about Evergrande and some of the other real estate firms in China having liquidity issues and defaulting on debt. Like, why is that happening if there's so much capital available in China with the consumer?
I can make some assumptions. I don't know exactly because in China it's very difficult to find out exactly the true story. Okay, there you don't know who controls these companies. Of course, it's government control, and I don't know if the people running these companies have some type of personal problems with the politicians in power, so they try to teach them a lesson. But irrespectively of that, I believe that I lost you. Yeah. I believe that they will not let this company go under because that will create a big financial problem, not just for China, but the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless of whether they let the companies go under, I think a lot of that, they expanded infrastructure and even up to the point of sort of building towns that are sitting somewhat unoccupied. The major markets definitely are compacted in China and rents are high, but some of this infrastructure that they built isn't really getting the traction yet. is that going to have an uptick when the consumer gets more money, or is that where the money that's sitting in China is going to go?
That's a hope, but just for clarification, always the real estate developers in China, they start developing not in areas that already there is a lot of action, but somewhere a little bit further away from there. So they create the demand eventually. Because in China, unlike any other country, you may start in an area there is nothing, and soon you might see millions of people there. Give a couple of examples. Most likely, and I know some of you came with me to Shenzhen. Shenzhen is the city next to Hong Kong, the border city. First time I worked there was a city like Tijuana with about 80,000 people there. Okay, 25 years later on, you know how many people there right now in Shenzhen? 17 million people. 17 million people. Is it growth or what? You see all the buildings there. It's beautiful. So they're developing this type of cities around China. Sometimes, however, they don't achieve the occupancy they need to have the profitability or even the survival of the company. We have seen that in several of these cities. But the majority, I would say, if I give you a number right now, 80-20, I think that they have been successful in that.
Okay.
Wanda, it's a company that used to do that. I don't know if you're familiar with Wanda. Wanda is a major real estate company in China and also in the entertainment. They bought the movie theaters here for 3.5 billion. AMC. What's the movie still? So they used to do that in China. Now the leader had some problems with some of the political figures, so there is some conflict there. So this time they're expecting eventually to have occupancy there. May happen, not as soon as they're expecting that to happen.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Demos and Bill and our PKE Planning Committee. I really appreciate your time today. And we, again, just thank everyone for being here. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us on our alumni team or your fellow alumni and the PKE Planning Committee. We would love to get you connected to the university. And thank you for we had some professors on as well that joined us today and a Graziadio board member. So we really thank you for your support. And again, thank you, Dr. Demos.